Hello everybody. So as we discussed in our last session about how the processing will happen when a user log into the SAP GUI, and we have also seen the individual work process, what it will happen inside the work process. So now we are going to talk more about the NQ and lock management. See, why I'm trying to make it clear, because these are the very important concepts that every basis consultant needs to have the knowledge. Without the concept, it's very difficult to understand what you are doing. Okay, so that's the purpose I am trying to explain in a deep way. So here, NQ and lock management. So basically, why you have seen in a work processes that we need to have at least minimum one NQ work processes. To ensure data consistency within an SAP system, you must ensure that data records cannot be accessed and changed by more than one user at any one time, right? To do this, the SAP system has its own lock management concept. Now, from a database perspective, every dialog step forms a physical and logical unit, okay, like the database transaction. So the database lock administration can only coordinate this type of database transaction, okay. This from the database perspective. So what will from the SAP point of view? So from the SAP point of view, however, this is not sufficient, because SAP transactions which are formed from a sequence of logically related work steps that are consistent in business terms are generally made up of several dialog steps which ABAPer do the programming, right? So SAP systems need to have their own log management, not only database, right? So this is implemented using this NQ work process. Now, the SAP log concept works on the principle that SAP programs make log entries for data records to be processed in the log table. So log entries can only be made if none already exist for the table entries to be logged. Here, the NQ work process manages the logical log of the transaction of the SAP transaction in the log table. The log table is located in the main memory of the instance within the NQ work process. If a user wants change access to data, the executing dialog work process requests a lock. To do so, the application developer must program this request explicitly. So say if a dialog request is processed on the NQ server, the dialog work process can access the log table directly. If it not checks whether a new log can be generated, okay, that is whether there is a collision with the logs that have already been set. If a log can be set, the dialog work process creates it and the user log owner is given the log key. The log key is kept in the user context in the shared memory. So where is the log key? It will be kept in the shared memory. So if the dialog work process that process the user request and the NQ work process are not running on the same instance, then these two work processes communicate through the message server. Okay, so in this case, what happened? The log request is forwarded from the dialog work processes to the NQ via the dispatcher and the message server. So the NQ work process now checks whether a log can be set or not. If this is possible, then the log is set by the NQ work process, and the log key transferred to the requesting dialog work process via dispatcher and message server. So when the log is requested, what happens? The system checks whether the requested log conflicts with existing entries in the log table or not. If the log table already contains corresponding entries, the log request is refused. So the application program can then inform the user that the requested operation cannot currently be executed because it is occupied by some other user. So this is what a concept. When one user accessing a data from the database that means it is locked by that user. And so if any other user using the same data to be accessed, it won't allow. So that is the lock management happens in SAP. So there are different kinds of lock. So I will tell one by one and explain. Like there are write locks, okay, which we call it as a lock mode exclusive. What it does, basically the log data can be edited only by one user. Okay, the request for another write log and another read log are rejected, right? A write log protects the log object against all types of other transactions. Only the same log owner can set the lock again, as I said just now. The second log is read log, which is nothing but log mode shared. What it means? For example, that several users can have read access to the log data at the same time. I mean, I'm talking about the read. Okay, if you are talking about the write, then only one user can at a time write the data. But in read, several users can have the read access to the log data at the same time. The request for additional read logs are accepted even if they are from the other users. Okay, but the write log in this case will be rejected. Okay, now the other type of log is we have enhanced write logs. It is nothing but log mode exclusive, non-cumulative. Means while write logs can be successively requested and released by the same transaction, an enhanced write log can only be requested once, even by the same transaction. All other requests for logs are rejected. I hope you understood, right? And one more log, we call it as the optimistic logs. These are nothing but log mode optimistic. See, optimistic logs responds like read log at first and can be changed to write logs. An optimistic log is set if the user displays the data in change mode. So optimistic logs on the same object do not collide. If the user wants to save the change data, the optimistic log must be changed to the write log, right? So this fails if someone sets a non-optimistic log on the object before. So this is very important. And also logs set by the application program are either released by the application program itself or by the update program once the database has been changed. So logs that have been passed on an update work process in this way are also returned to a file at operating system level and can therefore be restored if the in-queue server goes down. Okay, so how a person, like if the user wants to access the data and it needs urgency, then what? So you are, as a SAP basis consultant, you need to communicate with that user. How to check the logs? You have to go to the SAP SM12 is the transaction code for which displays the logs that are currently set. So if you hit SM12, okay, so it's asking the table name. So I'm just putting star. I mean, like not only read user, it could be any user, right? So and you have to mention the client. Okay, not 000, but you will provide with the client. Click on list. So it will show if there are any locked by any other users. Okay. So basically this is how it displays. If a log has already been inherited to the update process, the backlog can be set. So okay, see here there are no logs because no user has accessed any data from the database. So there are basically two ways of deleting logs held by the users. Either you can go from SM04 or you can go from SM12. So if you are finding any logs here, you can just go and delete those logs. Okay, you just click on the delete and you can delete those logs. and the other user can access it. So, but the process is that you need to communicate with the user. The username will be shown here. You can communicate with the user saying that the other user needs to access. So, if you have done with the work, then please log out from that database table. So, what you will do? You will email request. Otherwise, you can go to SM04. Okay, SM04 is nothing but where you will see all the users. Okay, now currently I'm logging into only one user, so it's showing DDIC. So in a company, there will be more than 50, 80 users will be logging. You can see all the users here, and you can just go to the particular user and click on session, and you can end the session there. So this will also delete the log. So there are two methods, as I said, for deleting the log. Either you can go from SM12 and either you can go from SM04 and you can delete those logs. So I hope you understood the concept of enqueue. It's little bit tricky, but you need to know the concept, how the log management will happen in the database, about the read log, write log, and other logs, as I explained. Thank you so much for attending this session. So in our next session, we'll be going to learn more about the other work processes. Bye.